invocation before we begin? Dear Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings. We thank you for seeing a day we've never seen. We thank you for the opportunity to come together. We thank you for our guest, Miss Cleveland, and your protection that you've shielded over her traveling up the highway. And we thank you for the opportunity to serve the students in this district. And now we ask that you lead us, guide us, open our hearts, show us love, show us how to understand, give us wisdom and knowledge as we go through this work session tonight. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, so I will, ready? We good? Okay, so I'd like to call the Board of Trustees work session for April 28th for Spartanburg County School District 1 to order at this time. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So the first agenda item we have tonight is our policy training. So we welcome Ms. Rashida Cleveland to School District 1, and thank you so much. We're excited. Ms. Cleveland is the SCSBA Director of Policy and Legal Services for the school board, and so we appreciate you taking time out. Policy is very important for every board member, and we don't take it lightly. And we have new board members, and we have some of us who've been on the board maybe 2 years or so. So we think a refresher would be amazing. And so we're so excited that you've joined us today. And you let us know how you'd like to move forward with, if you want us to ask questions while you're going through your presentation, or tell us to be quiet until you're done. You have the floor at this time.
Okay,
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all for having me. I'm totally fine with you all asking me questions as I go. I opted not to do the normal PowerPoint. I wanted it to be more like a discussion. And so you can follow along in the handouts that I have provided in the little gift bags that were left at your seats. So I'll get started. I usually open this with a question. So when you hear the word policy, what comes to mind first? Is it guidance, compliance, or frustration? What are some things that come to mind? Okay. So we'll jump right in by talking about what are policies. I look at policy as being the voice of the board and the law of the school district. Policies are the board's primary governance function and tool, and policies are tools to turn vision and goals into reality. Policies also explain what is wanted or not wanted by the board, and they may even include information like why or how much. Policies turn visions into goals by providing direction and structure. Policies should be broad enough that they permit some discretionary action by the administration in meeting the day-to-day operations of the districts and its schools. They need to be specific enough to give clear guidance though, right? And policies are based on established legal precedents or rules. All right, and so why do they matter? What are some reasons that you all think policies matter?
Policies ensure that everything is being conducted as indicated.
Right. Policies matter. Yes, ma'am.
Also, I think the policies, that there's so many that we have to comply with state law. And so that's very critical that we stay in compliance with that. Because it could affect funding, it could affect a lot of things if we don't.
That is correct. So policies do matter because they work to ensure compliance with state and federal laws and regulations. They protect the district from costly legal disputes by preventing circumstances where there are contradictions between what the board and the administration are doing. They ensure that the district is following mandates and they're not doing anything that's contrary to the law that's going to expose you to any sort of litigation. When litigation arises, the first place that courts will go is your policy. They want to see, how did we get here? What policies and procedures being followed? Were there any breakdowns in following? Was there absence of a policy? Was there absence of a procedure? If there is, then that kind of exposes you to the potential for legal issues. Policies also support consistent and fair decision-making, right? By helping to ensure that decisions are consistent, they're legal, they're aligned with the board's expectations for its students and its staff. They promote transparency and public trust. When a policy is clear, people across the district know exactly what to expect from you all and what the standards will be used to accomplish the board's visions and goals. Policies also protect the board, the superintendent, the staff, and the students by setting clear rules when problems arise. So a quick show of hands, how many of you have seen a situation where policy has been unclear or the lack of policy has led to confusion? Anybody want to share an example that's safe to share?
Well, mine's from work. I work for a public utility. My example's from work. I'm for a public utility, so we have policies that we follow, and I can, examples include unclear role definitions between CEO and a board member. So understanding those the policy was unclear as to where the CEO's role stopped and the board member started. So yeah, we had to clarify and create a little more specific policy to help address that situation.
Okay. Anybody else want to share? So that's a good example of where policy and procedure come into play. One of the most important distinctions for a board is the difference between policy and procedure. Policies are going to tell us what the district will do and why they will do it. And the administrative procedures or rules, as we refer to them as, tell us how it will happen in practice. So they establish the who, what, where, and how. The superintendent manages the implementation of the policy and administrative procedures, and clear roles prevent micromanagement, right? So allowing the board to focus on more strategic goals while the superintendent handles implementation and the day-to-day management of the district. Strong governance will improve your outcome, and so if your policies are strong, it will definitely improve the outcomes within your district, within your staff, your students. You will meet your goals with strong policy. All right, and so if we'll go to the next page, I often like to move next into the various roles. So we'll talk about board members' roles first, and I grabbed a few of the roles that are covered in policy BBAA. The board's role is to really set the vision and direction of the district, right? To establish the goals and priorities, as I've stated before. To adopt policy, that is one of your primary functions. Approve policies that govern the district. Select the superintendent. Empower the superintendent to implement the policies that you adopt. Approve the organization structure. Revise and review your policies, keeping them up to date to reflect changes in legal and community needs, and then also to hear appeals. And that's just a few of your roles. I also want to point out in your policy BBAA, and I've included it in your materials, in the fourth paragraph of your policy language, it states board members will interact with the district administration through the superintendent and will give orders to any subordinates of the superintendent, either publicly or privately, Suggestions and recommendations regarding the administration will be directly made to the superintendent. And that sort of is an example of how policy establishes who will do what and how, who's responsible for the day-to-day operations. Next, we're going to jump into your powers and duties, your policy BBA. Your rulemaking powers are established in State Statute 59-19-110. And per that statute, it says that the Board of Trustees of the several school districts may prescribe such rules and regulations not inconsistent with the statute of this law, of this state, as they may deem necessary or advisable to the proper disposition of the matters brought before them. And so this rulemaking power shall specifically include the right, at the discretion of the board, to designate one or more of its members to conduct any hearing in connection with any responsibility of the board and to make a report on this hearing to the board for its determination. And then the next area in state law where it references your powers to promulgate rules is 59-1990, where it says that the board's power to promulgate rules and regulations is provided in state law. And so in policy BA, the first section talks about your legislative and policy making power, and it says that the board is responsible for the development and adoption of policy to direct the general management and administrative actions of the district. And these policies will be in written form and continually reevaluated yearly in terms of the changes in needs and functions of the district. I always say policies that are not in writing are not policies. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. All right. Next, we'll move to discuss the board's role in policy development. So we'll start with to develop and adopt policies governing the very facets of district operations. In your policy manual, there are several sections. So I'm on page 8. Everybody, oh no, it's okay. And please stop me if I need to slow down or I'm going too fast. But one of your roles is to, like we stated before, develop and adopt policies governing the various facets of your district operations. Next is to approve new and revised policies and rescind any policies that are no longer needed. Your role is also to present ideas for policies and to work cooperatively with the administration to make needed revisions to any existing policies. Your next role is to provide resources to support policies such as adequate financing, staffing, or facilities. Next is to review how changes or implementation of policies significantly impact students and staff. And then last but certainly not least, your role in the policy development process is to constantly monitor progress towards goals and compliance with policies. Do you all have a structure in place currently that you use to monitor your progress towards compliance with goals and policy?
Other than the presentations we get from the various departments, I don't know of a particular structure, but just the updates that we get.
And that's good that you're receiving consistent updates, so you're aware of how your policies are working within your districts and your schools. Right? Your policy BG/BGD, that's where I am next, so that will be between pages 8 and 9, so that's right after page 8. I've included a copy of your current policy. In the opening paragraph, it says that the board believes that the development, adoption, and review of board policies is its most important governance function. It also says that board policies establish goals, direction, and structure of the district. And in addition to policies required by local, state, and federal law and government, the board adopts policies to provide direction to the superintendent and other administrators to guide the district's educational program and to provide clear expectations for district staff, students, and parents and legal guardians. And I think that's an excellent opening statement and defines what the whole policy process is about. And that's a area that I think you all should focus on, remembering those goals there in the first paragraph. This policy also talks about your process for suspension and repeal of any policies. Sometimes situations arise where a policy will need to temporarily be suspended. Say, for instance, you are nearing a deadline for policy adoption that maybe the State Board of Education has established. Maybe you have to adopt a policy by August 1st, and your meeting is on the 28th, and it's your first time looking at the policy. You won't be able to do 2 readings in that instance. So that is a situation where you may have to suspend that section of policy language that says that you will do 2 readings, and you will have to review and approve the policy with 1 reading due to that deadline. Another area where a policy may need to be repealed. It's just not working anymore, it's no longer legally compliant, or it's not your current practice. You may need to repeal those policies. This should only be used in emergency circumstances. This is not something you want to do all the time. If you notice that you're continuously needing to suspend or repeal policy language, you need to look at revising that policy. Why are we needing to do this on a consistent basis? Next, this policy addresses your review of administrative rules. And in the second paragraph is what I want to highlight. The board will approve administrative rules when such approval is required by law or otherwise advisable. The superintendent will have the freedom, however, to amend or issue additional rules or procedures consistent with board policy. Right. And that is important because the superintendent is responsible for the day-to-day operations. So boards sort of manage from in the air, bird's eye view, if you will, and the superintendent is down in the trenches. And so giving him the leeway with the administrative rules allows to make any changes without necessarily needing to get the board's approval for every change that needs to be made.
Ms. Cleveland, I do have a question. So, what have you seen has kind of been the, ideal way of, once he changes that administrative rule, that is it brought to us at that time, or?
So what I've seen most districts do is once he changes that administrative rule, it is brought to you all for review.
Okay,
Not necessarily approval, but review. But it is
That's
okay
right.
to vote on it. Most districts do, that's fine. But you all do have the power to review those changes.
okay.
All right. So we'll jump right in. That leads us right into the superintendent's role. The superintendent, his purpose is to ensure that policies are followed throughout the district. The superintendent also ensures that all staff have the opportunity to ask questions when they are unclear about specific policies, and to ensure that they are trained on how to properly implement policies when necessary. The superintendent is responsible for developing rules and procedures necessary to implement the board's policies, to coordinate and manage the operations of the district, and the board. This goes back to what I was saying. The board should not be heavily engrossed in the day-to-day operations of its schools, but the board should focus on big picture leadership. And remember that effective boards sort of govern, like I said, from 30,000 feet and not in the trenches. Right? And the superintendent is also, like I said, responsible for carrying out those policies and assisting the board with any policy development needs. So if you'll go with me to your policy, your current policy CB, school superintendent. In that policy, in the second paragraph, it states that the board will delegate the administration of the district to the superintendent, who will carry out the district's administrative functions in accordance with this contract, the policies adopted by the board, local, state, and federal law. And then if you'll go next to your policy CBC, and I want to highlight your administration in the absence of policy section. In that section, it says that if a situation arises that is of great importance and requires immediate attention, the superintendent will act to resolve the situation. The superintendent will promptly inform the board of such action. If it appears there should be a policy to address the matter, the superintendent will make a recommendation to the board. And is that currently how your process works? That's.
You're saying if there's not a policy in place?
Right,
Yes,
right.
yes, ma'am.
That's good. Okay. All right, so before we get into our next policy discussion, I have a question for everyone. How many board members does it take to change a light bulb?
All of us.
So, the answer is none. It is the board's job to say, let there be light, and the superintendent's job to choose the best light bulbs and to delegate a staff member to install them. And so the board determines if the light shines bright enough.
Yeah, we love that. We also know about a cookie because of Miss Center, how to bake a cookie. We learn a lot with examples, so we won't ever forget that.
Okay, so our next policy is your policy BDD, and that just talks about the board and superintendent relationship. Again, I'll highlight, the board considers its function to be that of policymaking and setting guidelines for the operation of the district, and the superintendent is responsible for translating the will of the board into administrative action. So what's the superintendent's role in the policy process? The superintendent acts as an advisor to the board on areas needing policy development or revision. The superintendent presents drafts, policy drafts, and provides the board with necessary data and information for policy adoption. After the first reading, the superintendent is responsible for making sure that that policy is available for public review, ensuring that approved policies are posted online, and you all post your policies through our online services, and so we do get those in and we immediately post them after we process them and I review them. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, we go through 2 readings, then approval. Is it required, is it written that the first reading, second reading has to be put out on our website also? Is that a requirement, or is it what, can we wait till it's approved?
No, it has to go on the
Okay.
agenda. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I
So
wanna
each
make
time,
sure.
so when
Okay.
there's a policy up for discussion,
I was trying to
first
save some
reading.
work for some people.
And so typically, it's usually the first reading and then the second reading, and you adopt at that second reading.
Okay.
Unless there's some revisions and things that have to come about. So it almost sounds like you're doing 3 readings, if I'm hearing that correctly,
Right.
almost.
Is,
I want to make sure we get this, we understand. So I think the district has a rule, or we have an administrative rule for how, once after that first reading, that it is made public, but I'll let Dr. Smith confirm that, and then the second reading, and then when it's adopted, that's when it's in the online policy.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, after the first read, it is made public.
Okay. That's good. Do you all typically get public comment back on your policies?
Yes.
That's good. That's good.
Not
Community
a
engagement.
lot. We'd like more. Not a lot, but yes, we do.
But that's always good. That's good.
is that first reading and second reading, is that district policy, or is that state or whatever?
So that's
That we do the
district.
first and second, so it's
Right.
our rule, so
Yeah,
the
so it's
board
best
could change that
practice.
if we elected to do so?
You
The
could.
board could change that if we elected to do so?
You could. So the
Just a
readings
thought, just a thought.
aren't required in any state law or anything. It's best practice.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no state statute or regulation that says 2 readings, but that's best practice.
I think,
a good practice for us as far as transparency and everything.
That is correct.
so, but Dr. Brown, after the first read, we are posting that online, right?
We do post that online.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just making sure.
Gotta go above and beyond. It's still for public review, but we also go above and beyond to post it online as well.
Okay.
And Ms. Cleveland, the way we would get public comment, we post our agenda 10 days out, and then the public can review that, and then they have 5 days before the board meeting to put in for public comment.
Okay, that's
So
good.
that's the avenue if our public would like to address any of ours. So that's why we put our agenda out 10 days ahead of the board meeting.
That's good. Great practice. So, next, the superintendent is responsible for supervising the review of the policy manual on a continuing basis, developing rules and procedures necessary to implement the board policies. The superintendent, as I stated before, has the freedom to amend or issue additional rules and procedures so long as they are consistent with the board's policy. Administrative Rule BGDR says that the superintendent will present those proposed policies to the board at least 2 weeks prior to possible approval. Right, and I'm going to skip ahead. You all have a policy CH, policy implementation. You've recently updated this policy in the last 2 years, which is good. And in the opening paragraph of that policy, it says that the superintendent is responsible, again, for carrying out policies established by the board and as necessary is authorized to develop detailed administrative rules and procedures under which the district will operate. The superintendent may delegate this authority to staff and the building principal as necessary and advisable. And so I noted, you should all notice by now there's a continuing theme around policy. Who does what? Who's responsible for what, right? So now we'll move to talking about some of the key benefits of sound policy. Now that everybody knows what a policy is, what's the difference between a policy and a procedure and your respective roles within that, let's talk about key benefits of sound policy. Sound policy results in confidence in making policy-related decisions by fostering continuity and stability within your district, right? Sound policies reduce legal risk, as I stated before. And then when expectations are written clearly, the district is less likely to respond inconsistently or to create unintended problems. Policies also help demonstrate that the board has acted thoughtfully, deliberately, and in compliance with the law. Sound policies improve stakeholder relationships by making it easier for them to understand how decisions are made and what standards guide the district. And so lastly, sound policies support board governance and strategic goals, as I stated before. Policies give credence to board action, right? People tend to respond to what is written, even when they may not agree with it. And I'm on page 18 if anybody's following along. Next, we're going to talk about characteristics of effective policies. What are some things or traits that you think make up effective policies?
I'm a big proponent of them being clear for everybody to understand. Using language that makes it really clear, and when you read it one time, you understand it.
That's a good one. Anybody else?
Along with clarity, I would say being easy to read.
Yes.
I think it's just important that we not get backlogged on them and we get so far behind that we're trying to I think it's important to keep our policies moving. Continuous, because it's not something that we do just one time. It's a constant thing that we're having to revisit due to maybe situations in the district, legislative-wise, or whatever. I think it's because with all the legalities that can happen, like you said, policies is where they're going to go, and we've got to keep those maintained.
I think we have to make sure too, when we're developing policy, that we do it with administration, because it has to be something that they feel comfortable carrying out, and feel comfortable that we both have kind of collaborated on it, because they're in the real world of it, and so something that they can uphold, that the administration can uphold.
Right. Anybody else? So all of you have made some great points. I'll start out by saying that effective policies are not written in a rush. They're researched, drafted, reviewed, updated with input from the administration, and whenever appropriate, the community. So when you get that community feedback, that you all are taking that and seeing how you can improve the policy based on community engagement as well. When a policy is developed carefully, it is more likely to be understood and supported and applied consistently. Effective policies are legally based, right? Your policy manual should contain mandated and reference policies based on statutory law, case law, AG opinion sometimes. Guidance from the State Department is important, federal regulation. All of those things should be addressed within your policies. Policies must be comprehensive, right? Oftentimes, the districts are required to enact local policies for which specific provisions are left to the district's discretion. So sometimes you'll get model policies from us and you'll see they have options. Insert designated staff here. What is your procedure? I often include drafters' notes for districts to amend the policies to fit their district-specific practices. And so you'll see inter-district specific information here oftentimes in our policies. And that's why, and that's just so that they're comprehensive and speak to what is happening here in Spartanburg 1. Right? It's also important that these policies are developed not only to comply with legal requirements, but to meet your district needs. Policies must be up to date. So as you said, continuous review. Out-of-date policies are useless and they can be dangerous because they could expose you to legal risk. Policies must be accessible, easy to locate. One of the most convenient ways to accomplish this is by posting your district policies online, as you all are doing a great job at doing. Policies should be easy to understand, as you said. They should be written to address the audience. Policies must be practical and workable. Vague or general policies may not give sufficient guidance to your district administrators. Policies should be structured to enable the district to exercise its discretion while complying with the law. And so those are just a few things that make up effective and sound policies. So that leads me to where SCSBA's model policies come into play. Our model policies are legally compliant, customizable templates. I want you all to remember that, templates. SCSBA, we encourage the board to make revisions to the model policies. We want the board to do what is appropriate for their district in these policies. We want them to reflect your vision, your commitment to the district. SCSBA, once you make any changes, if you host your policies online with us, you're sending those to me, I'm reviewing them. I am going to advise you if there is something that you have changed that cannot be changed based on a state law, regulation, or anything like that. You will get that recommendation from me. Also, the inclusion of administrative rules and procedures. Sometimes we will do templates and models for administrative procedures as well, but we leave leeway for them to be customized to meet the district-specific needs and practices. We also recommend that rules and procedures be kept as the superintendent's purview, as I stated before, for use in implementing board policies. If the administration operates within the guidelines of a general policy adopted by the board, it may change administrative procedures without prior approval of the board, but it's best practice that the board approves them, right? So that is a way that we work, and I'll circle back to it being customizable again. Once we provide you with the model policies, whether it be through a revision process in which we do drafts, and we try to tailor the drafts to meet the district-specific needs based on the information that we have at the time of the project. But when you're getting model policies through our policy and legislative update manual, once you get those policies, they're yours. Feel free to change them as you need to. I encourage it. I love to see when we get policies in that have been adopted. I love to see when you all have actively changed them and they really reflect your district-specific needs and goals and visions. I love to see that. I really do. So just remember as you review your model policies and your drafts that they're customizable, they're yours. Right? Policy review schedule. I have included this little green chart in your handouts. I created this a few years ago because I thought it would be useful to our boards to have an example of a policy review schedule. Do you all currently have a review schedule that you follow?
We do we set it kind of as we go along. But in our books tonight, they may see something a little similar to a flow chart that you have here. So yes, we're in the process of trying to perfect that policy process so everybody feels comfortable with the time.
Okay, okay. That's good. And policies should be reviewed regularly. Laws change, expectations change, school practices change. A policy that made sense 5 or 6 years ago may now be incomplete or outdated. And so, in fact, an outdated policy can be just as harmful as no policy at all because it gives a false sense of security to the board. Regular review is one of the most simple ways that the board can keep its work relevant and effective. And it also shows the community that the board is being proactive and rather than reactive when things arise, right? How often does your board intentionally revisit policies for clarity and relevance? How often does that occur? Is it yearly?
Here's where we are since I've been here for my 3 years. Because I believe we contracted with y'all before I got here.
That's correct.
Because I don't believe there had been a review of our policies in a long time. So we're currently going through the sections playing catch up. So we started, I know with Section A when I got here, and now we're in Section G. So we've made good headway, but we still have a way to go to get caught up. So then we could do something like what you've suggested, which is brilliant for us to, but we've got to get caught up first. But we're getting closer, and and that's something we're going to talk tonight with timeline and such. Because as administration, we don't want to move too slow, but we also don't want to move too fast.
That's correct.
We want to make sure the board feels good about where we are with their policy. So this will be helpful. We just got to get there. We're just not quite there yet, but we're making headway.
Yeah. And some of the heavier sections will take longer to move through. Your G, your I, your J. Yeah, yes. Trust me, when I am working through Section G and I and J, those are some of the long ones, and they take me a bit of time because I go through it. I'm on your website. I'm trying to figure out all of your processes so that I can tailor it as best as I can so that you have a complete product when it comes before you. So we'll just talk briefly about the policy review schedule. You'll see I have January and February, sections A and K. Section A is, of course, your foundation and basic commitment. Section K is your school, community, and home relations. And you'll see I have a little explanation as to why. And I say that in the spirit of New Year's resolutions and goals, this is a good time for the board to review the district's roles in providing public education and working within the community. And then in March and April, our dreaded G section, right? That's a great time for your personnel section because, as we all know, we're getting into contract renewal season. And so that's a good time to go through that section. In May and June, I recommend that you focus on your student and instruction section in anticipation of the upcoming school year. In July and August, focus on section C, D, and E. That's your general administration, your fiscal management, and your support services. It's an excellent time to review the district's finance and support services and consider the superintendent's performance around this time. In September, we recommend that you look at the board's policy, section B, school board governance and operations. It's the beginning of a new school year. It's an excellent time to review your governance, and your operation policies. In October and November, we recommend that you round out the policy review schedule by looking at section F, facilities and planning and development, and section L, education agency relations. These are smaller sections, and they're easier to review due to the limited schedule caused by holidays and winter breaks. And I know most boards don't meet in December, and so we've left December open. And also, I always tell boards that a good opportunity to review policies is during these work sessions. That is a great time to review them and have the necessary discussions that you all need to have and make any necessary revisions and changes during work sessions. What method do you all use to present changes to language as you're discussing and going over your policy. So what's the method? So if you all discuss, I believe you're going to discuss some policy tonight. If there's a change to that policy, how do you communicate when the revisions have been made based on recommendations that have been discussed here tonight?
I can't.
Okay, go ahead.
We're going to talk about that tonight. As we've been working with Ms. McDowell to get our process refined. So that is actually what we're going to do tonight on agenda item 3, to refine that more. So it's just been a work in progress, and we've tried a couple of different things, but we feel better about what we've brought tonight, because Wanda's given us some great direction
Okay.
with that.
That's good. That's good. And I mention that because I know it could get tricky if you're trying to use Google Docs and
Yeah, I was gonna ask you
everybody
that.
can comment at the same time.
Yeah.
You could implicate some FOIA things there. So you don't want to do that as you review and make recommendations and changes and things like that. You don't want a quorum of the board on a Google Doc discussing, because that could be that could be very problematic.
Yes,
and it
it
could
would.
appear to
We
be
did.
a
We-
meeting.
we agree.
From your advice from Dr. Brown's
Uh-huh.
calling you this week, that is part of our process.
Good. I
is
wanted
making
to
sure
make
that's
sure I
not-
mentioned that
Yeah.
tonight.
Yes,
Well, we,
yes.
we listen to your wise
Right.
feedback.
But I do have a semantics question
Okay,
regarding
sure,
that.
sure.
Regarding that, so when is it deliberating? When is it a FOIA no? Because if it's in our board drive, our packet, and it's a PDF, but we of course give we either through email or text, or mostly email and phone call with Dr. Brown, give our suggestions for additions, deletions, clarifications, that kind of thing. And then he in turn puts that in the document in PDF. So there's no deliberating, but is it okay that we all see what has happened up to that point?
It's okay that you see what has happened, but it's not okay if it's, like I said, I believe the example that Dr. Brown gave me was like
you're
a
right.
Google Doc.
That
where
was
you
no.
could-
That was a
Yeah,
no.
that's a
And you
no-no.
had the name,
But
and
so
we
long
knew-
as it's
yeah.
it's
a
not where you
PDF?
all are accessing it as a quorum, it's a PDF, you're not commenting, you're not discussing anything. I gave a best practice of put it in the board packet.
Okay.
Make it a part of the board packet.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what FOIA says.
Okay.
So you want to avoid the appearance of circumvention. So if you look at 39.470 subsection C of FOIA, it says that no chance meeting, social meeting, or electronic communication may be used in the circumvention of the spirit of the requirements of this chapter to act upon a matter over which the public body has supervision, control, jurisdiction, or advisory power. And so that is why I'm saying it's not advisable to have a document that could potentially lead to discussion, because if you recommend a change and then someone comes behind you and says that, and then a quorum of the board has commented on this document, well, that's in circumvention of FOIA, correct? Because now that can be potentially perceived as a meeting. Right. It's 30-4-70.
But as long as it's a PDF and we can't
And
do
you're not commenting,
anything,
you're not discussing, you're not
right,
deliberating.
Right, we're not
That's
commenting,
correct.
we're not discussing, as long as a PDF, a working PDF that they are, that the administration
that the
is.
administration
Yes,
is in.
okay, perfect, thank you.
So, I guess this ties into this. So basically, our open discussion is that our meetings are either work sessions.
That's
That's our
correct.
open
That's
discussions.
correct. So that
That's
the
when it has
public-
to take place.
That's correct.
Okay,
So
thank
that
you
the
very
public
much.
is aware. All right. And so I will round out tonight's discussion with talking a little bit about some of the benefits that SCSBA offers as a part of our policy and legal department services. We review all new or revised policies that are adopted by the board. We review proposed policy updates. So if some of those proposed changes you're unsure about, have questions about, you all can send them to me ahead of your board meeting to take a look at, and I can make any recommendations for policy language or assist Dr. Brown in developing policy language for you. We offer model policies. They are subject to some per section limitations if you're not in a revision project, but we do offer models. We offer limited legal opinions, as you all know, and we answer policy and parliamentary procedure questions. We offer manual revision services. As you all know, you all had a full revision recently in the last few years. And we also maintain your policies online manual. We also provide you with a copy of the annual Policy and Legislative Update book, which includes a summary of everything that has happened in the legislative session in the past year, what's happened in the federal landscape, the local landscape, as well as we discuss case law in that book as well. And we make any changes to policies for you all through our model policies based on any of those things that may have changed in the legal landscape in the last year. And so I am about to start that project. I typically shut everything down and I focus on that project starting in May, and I go through until I'm ready to publish the book in August, just before school law. So I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all are familiar with that process. You get that blast email a week before school law, and then we discuss it in a presentation at school law. And so this year we will be doing that again. Debbie Elmore and I, we will be going through what's happened in the legislative session, how that affected your policy, and I will be presenting any new models that have stemmed from that. All right. And so key takeaways for tonight, and then I'll open the floor for questions and discussion. Key takeaways: establish a policy review schedule. Check all policies and administrative rules for consistency with state law, SCDE regulations, federal laws and regs and guidance, court rulings. Make sure your policies are up to date in the Policy Online Manual, and we assist you all with that. Be sure that all policies reflect your current practice. If you notice that there's a practice in place that is not outlined in your policies, I recommend that you revise the policy language to fit the practice that is currently in place in the district. And also review related policies during the same time frame. So that goes back to that policy review schedule. Try to review all your Section G policies in the same time frame. It makes it a more cohesive process, and it's just better for the board. And so you all have my card in your handouts as well. And so now I will open the floor for any further questions or discussions that you might have.
In the past several months, and you know, I've spoken with you several times, I spoke with Debbie several times regarding policy and everything. Now, once, you know, we go through our readings and the policies are forwarded to you for what I call legal review to make sure that, and you're gonna upload those. Now, my findings were that at one time, in past, it was sent, like, the previous superintendent was here, it went to, the notification went to the superintendent and the board chair, who was Mr. Cawthorn at the time. And looking through all of that, that communication never got, Dr. Smith's name might have been on it, but it stayed Billy Cawthorn. Mr. Rollins' name, who was the chairman for 2 years, never was on there that I could tell. So I talked to Debbie about this, and personally, I would like to know, I don't see why it has to just go to the chairman or the superintendent when it's updated. Could all the board members not be notified that that policy has been updated and is out there?
So it's better if we send it to the superintendent, if Dr. Brown, is your policy consultant, and then the board chair. Because again, if I put all of you on a chain email and you all hit reply all, it is FOIA thing.
Well, this is just a
Yes,
conversation
so-
Debbie and I had, Debbie Elmore and I had.
So if for some reason the board chair is not getting that, I can add you, Ms. McDowell, to that chain. I can communicate that to our paralegal so that she knows once we process those policies and I review them. You'll only hear from me regarding that if there is something wrong. So in that process, if you send them back and you don't get a recommendation from me, that's good. You should feel good. You didn't have to hear from me. It means everything is fine with it, and I meticulously go through each one, and so I will only be providing feedback if there is some problem or if I have some recommendation that I think you all should follow.
So basically, we just need to make sure y'all are updated each time our officers change.
That's correct. you all should be doing that. Yeah, we have to be up, because otherwise we just stick with who we know to be the contact. And so if someone would just reach out to me or my staff, and we'll update it in our system so that we know who to send things to.
So would that message include the approval, or no news is good news?
No news is good
Okay.
news. So you typically will get an email back from us once we process it that it has been uploaded and sent to Microscribe, is who we have partnered with to upload policies online. So we send them to them after we process them, and I look at them for their review, and then we forward them over to Microscribe. All right.
Any other questions? This was amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you
You're
so
welcome.
much, Ms. Cleveland. One of that is our policy updating and making sure we stay FOIA compliant, and transparency, and making sure we get the policies right. That is a big goal for our board this year. So we really want to focus on our policies, and we have had to establish a couple of new policies. Well, one, and then a rule that we have had to establish already with AI. But everything else we got a schedule to update, and that's going to be it's going to be probably on every month's agenda. So we have a commitment to updating our policies.
That
So we
is good.
appreciate it.
That is good. And I am here for you all in any way that you all need me as
Okay.
far as your policy process. When you have questions, I often speak to Ms. Harper and Dr. Brown. Just give me a call. I'm one phone call away, and always happy to help. Like I said, if it's any proposed language or anything that you have ideas about, anybody wants to bounce ideas off of me as it relates to policy, parliamentary procedure, any of that, even down to your board minutes, your board agenda, I am available and ready and willing to help. So just give me a call. All right, thank you all.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cleveland. We appreciate you. And yes, thank you. It's in there. Yeah, so we'll take just a 5-minute break right now before we get into the next item. Everybody ready to roll for the next item? So we will turn it over to Miss Erica Center for a policy discussion, and Dr. DJ Brown after that.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Smith. Thank you for this opportunity. You have, I think it's underneath your agenda, or it was. I know we're good at giving y'all lots of papers, aren't we? It's a one-pager, kind of a timeline flow chart. Looks like this. So kind of just to reiterate, you know, what Ms. Cleveland said, we don't want to rush the rollout of AI, and we want to make sure that we are implementing a very strategic model. And so in her words, when you are at a place when you say, let there be light, we want to make sure that we have a strategic approach to making sure that we're choosing the right light bulbs, replacing the light bulbs, putting in new light bulbs, whatever that process will look like. This is kind of what the light bulb change would look like, okay? So in the first box, you will see for our May board meeting that potentially the AI policy could be up for second reading and approval. And I just wanted to give you an idea of if that policy was approved, that this is kind of the timeline of what the implementation would look like moving forward. But noting that all of these steps that I have listed here would not happen until we have policy in place. Okay, that's very important. So if second reading and policy is approved at the May board meeting, the next step would be in August of 2026 that we would pilot Magic Student, which we're currently not, we only have Magic Teacher. So our teachers are only using Magic Teacher right now. So once the policy, if it were to be approved, then we would start a strategic approach to Magic Student. So August of 2026, we would pilot Magic Student only in AI lead teachers' classrooms. So right now we have 10 AI lead teachers, one in every school. Those teachers, you know, they are kind of our gurus of AI. And so we feel confident in kind of giving them the lead for rolling out this pilot. A part of this pilot would be a parent consent letter. So any student that is on the AI lead teacher's roster would receive a parent consent letter that would go home before we do anything. Also during this process, we would be creating guidelines for AI teacher and student use. And I just kind of listed here because I felt like it was important. You know, we've been working with AI lead teachers since about November. And so we've had lots of discussions with AI leads and with teachers that are not necessarily AI leads, is that some of the things we've discussed is as we've kind of gotten some experience with Magic Teacher, is that potentially maybe moving forward, no AI use in kindergarten through 5th grade might be what we land on is we think it's appropriate for not using AI Magic Student in elementary in this phase. One of the things we would also pilot within this model will be creating a leveled approach of implementation in middle and high school. So leveled approach would be a part of the process would be bringing back to you guys what that would look like. So it would be some type of leveled approach so that teachers and students are clear on when it's an AI-free assignment, when I can use a little bit of AI, and when I can use a little more of AI. We also feel like even our AI lead teachers feel like this is a balanced approach to technology. So everything within this framework focuses on a balanced approach to technology. Also during this pilot, we would be creating professional development for teachers. Because what we've learned is that through the Empower Conference, which I'll get to in just a moment, but we've got so much positive feedback from our teachers. And some of the best professional development that we can provide for our Spartanburg District 1 teachers are created by Spartanburg District 1 teachers. So our AI lead teachers will gain some experience using Magic Student and will be able to create some D1 specific, differentiated just for us professional development that we would roll out next school year. So looking at the third box, in October of 2026, we would provide feedback to the school board, and from our AI leads, we would obviously be getting feedback along the way. We would revisit any policy if needed, provide an overview of professional development, so we will come back and share out the things that we've learned through this pilot with our AI lead teachers, and that could happen at a work session or a board meeting. Also in October of 2026, that's when we will also host another Empower conference, because overwhelmingly teachers want to see that return. It has been very evident. I think Dr. Smith can attest to that he's read that in the survey. So we will make sure that we are providing professional development geared toward Magic Student that our AI lead teachers will lead. But it's also very important to note that the Empower Conference will be a balanced approach to technology. So it would not just be an AI technology conference. It would be a variety of things. In November of 2026, based on school board and AI lead teacher feedback, Magic Student for middle or high school, we would have discussions, middle or high school, maybe to look at after the Empower Conference and after they've been given some PD, maybe looking at Magic Student implementation at either middle or high school. Then in January of 2027, professional development, because we'll also have another work day. So professional development to include sessions on Magic Student, again, a balanced approach to technology. And looking ahead to January/February of 2027, based on school board and AI lead teacher feedback, potentially Magic Student for middle and high school. So nowhere within this plan at this moment for next school year would we do anything with elementary. So that's kind of the plan moving forward if the policy, second reading and policy, AI policy was approved at the May board meeting, kind of how we plan to move forward as a district.
And I wanted y'all to hear that plan before we talked about the policy, just so you could see where we are going and with your blessing. So I just wanted everybody to be clear about the direction.
And I will be happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
I have a question.
Sure.
What if you have a parent that on the consent letter says no? How does that, in a classroom setting, if you've got this group of kids that are allowed to use AI and get answers instantaneously, and this group of kids that can't use the technology, that are doing it, air quotes, the old-fashioned way, how does a teacher handle that situation? Did they go back to their AI software and say, design a lesson plan for kids that are 50% not on AI and 50% that are? I see potential problems when we're relying on AI so much.
Mm-hmm. And I think that would be a part of this pilot, is that we would have to have those discussions and devise a differentiated approach. Because I'll tell you, years ago, it's hard to believe it's been years ago, but when we rolled out one-to-one with devices, we kind of experienced that a little bit. And we had to kind of finagle the waters and figure out what that needed to look like. But that would be a part of this pilot. So I don't know that I have a definite answer, but I think a part of this pilot would be kind of working through that to figure out the best approach.
Yeah, I think, I know sometimes with technology, going along with AI, there's a lot of, some students have paper pencil requirements from their parents, and I think that's kind of going to be a normal thing, but with the AI, of course, it's just going to be a learning opportunity for everybody. I actually liked what the kind of the speed of this, because you're getting everyone rolling with the teachers, and then having a kind of reflection back, like, all right, what's going right, what's going wrong, essentially, and kind of review that policy to see if somebody needs to change a few things here or there. But yeah, but I think with the whole some can, some can't. Some students actually lose their privileges as well. So,
Yes.
there's you're gonna have to figure out those options. It's going to be a sort of work in progress, a living document.
The consent form you're referencing, that's separate, a totally separate thing. The way you're gonna treat AI as for parents to sign.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
the
There would be a
parents are-
consent
it's a clear
form.
understanding.
Yes, that magic student, what it is. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me. So on the magic student, and excuse me if I'm just plain dumb for lack of better reasons, but I wanna explain to me the benefit that AI is going to make versus the pencil paper student. Where's the value? What's the student gaining? That I wanna understand AI just.
Well, and I think that, just reiterating, it's a balanced approach because there is a lot of value in pencil and paper. But we also know that our students are living in a world of AI, and it is very important that we teach them how to use it properly so that they are not using it for things like plagiarism. How can you use it to support you and to enhance your work? Which goes back to we may not ever decide that it's appropriate for elementary. But middle school age is a very vulnerable age where we know that these students are going to be exposed to AI, whether it be in high school or in college. And so we can start teaching those kids how to use it appropriately.
David, that's a great question. My son graduates from Clemson next Thursday in construction science. And he said, as we were talking about, he said, Dad, I use AI every day, all day in my classes, and going to use it on the job as well. So we have to have that aspect for our students because this is in the workforce now, and we have to prepare our kids for the workforce. But to Trey's comment is, we can't just go full postal and forget about paper and pencil and folks that might not be okay with it, which is also very valid. And Erica has said it so eloquently about balance. And that's something we're really going to take a look at. We've already taken a look at it with our instructional coaches and our teachers of the years of not just AI, but technology as a whole. Where are we in the district? Because right now, in educators, we're bad about a pendulum. We like to either be on one side where we're all in, or we like to be on the other where we don't touch it. So we're analyzing right now where we are as a district, and I've got a leadership meeting at the end of May with all of my principals and assistant principal. We're going to further discuss technology, because we've got laptops 1-to-1, and we're sending them home every day, and we're looking at that. So I think there's going to be some encouraging things to come out of all of these discussions, is that we realize that we're on one side of the pendulum right now, and we have to try to find balance, because there's good in technology, but there's also good in paper and pencil, and there's also good in kids just learning their multiplication tables like we did, and being able to do some old school things. So the encouraging thing to me is that we realize, and this came from a conversation with a current board member that started this, and then that has led me to other conversations. And I guess where it's also showed up, our staff survey. Our staff survey has, it was one of the main, and we're gonna actually go through that in my executive summary. In lieu of my executive summary next board meeting, I'm gonna take you through the highlights of our staff survey. But multiple staff members said, hey, we are too all in on technology, and we need to pull back some. So we've talked about it with our instructional coaches. We've talked about it with our teachers of the years. I've talked about it with my administrators already. Gonna further talk about it with them in May, as that's our plan and meeting for the next year. And I've heard in the staff survey of them saying, slow down, let's look where we are, let's pull back to the middle. So that's a broader conversation that we're having. AI is a piece of that, and I was so glad that Erica put that in our plan, that it's not gonna be, let's just plug in, it's gonna be AI 24/7 all day in D1. That's not gonna happen. We've got to put our toe in this slowly, and that's why I also like this plan, as Brad pointed out, that, you know, we're being methodical about this, but it's part of a broader conversation happening now in D1 to make sure our kids are most well-equipped for the world, and that's just not technology like we used to say a few years ago, because a few years ago, I think everybody was afraid their kid was gonna be left out if it wasn't just 24/7 with technology. Well, now I think we're seeing some of the ills of that, some of the ill effects of that. And I was at a superintendent meeting the other day, and several superintendents had got invited to Raleigh, North Carolina, to Google headquarters. Nobody ever invites me to a cool trip like that, okay? But they got to go, and there was training there. And one of the executives came down, and I don't remember who it was, but they said all the tech nerds and geeks, they like worshiped him when he walked down the stairs. They like, he was somebody well known that they all knew. And this guy made this statement. He said, in 2 years, every state in the United States will have restrictions on screen time. That's coming from the Google guy. So that's what he told superintendents. So this is kind of cool that here we are having these discussions, because like I said, this started for me at the school board conference. Conversations started being had, and I started paying attention more, like, oh wow, what are we doing? I plugged in more, got Erica and Casey started asking some questions of our staff, and then I had no idea it was going to show up in the staff survey, because I don't control that. That was really impressive to me, that our teachers now are bringing that to forefront. So we're headed down, I think, an exciting path to figure out what all this looks like for us, and that's just something we need to keep y'all a part of as we take this journey, especially with AI, but not only AI, the broader topic of technology.
So I am very proud of the oversight that I think this gives, the oversight of AI and the balanced approach, and the respect for parental, consent for this. And I'm also, I also think that we do need to think about, and I don't know if this is, if this would be in the administrative rule, that when there is an AI at whatever category, whatever level assignment, there is the same assignment AI free for the students whose parents have opted, out for them to be, to be a part of AI. So I think we might need to look at that from the beginning, instead of scurry around when we figure out that we're going to have kids that parents may opt out of that. So I think maybe we should really hit that head on and say, where there's an assignment with AI at whatever level, whatever AI free, AI open AI, whatever we decide, that we also have that same assignment at the same time.
There's
So no
always an
kids
AI
feels
free.
like they have, we don't want any kid to
No.
feel like, oh, now I've got to do this assignment because I can't do that. You don't want, so, and that maybe at that time, our students can choose, even if their parents may have, may have opted, may have said you can do it. Maybe at that time, the students can choose which one they would like to do. And
That's a great suggestion.
I also think that we saw a presentation on Magic School. I don't know if that same presentation exists, but I think it would be great. I think especially for Mr. Green to see that what Magic School does, and how and kind of how it would be used by the students, and how it's being used by the teachers. But there's another level that, and you said we're going to build our levels, but we've got to teach our high schoolers at least how to use AI and Canva, Notebook LM. I mean, we're going to have to look at these programs, because that's what's going to happen to them when they leave. They're going to be asked to develop a podcast using Notebook LM. And we're going to be like, what the world is Notebook LM? We don't want that to happen, because that is another part of AI, that once they are in college, or maybe even some are doing now. I mean, they know how to do all of that. All the students, they're going to be teaching us. They're going to be teaching us. We've just got to put parameters in place and make sure that every student, is moving along at the level and pace that they would like for AI. So, but I don't know if we still have that Magic School presentation, but it would be great if we could at least get a little bit of what Magic School does
Could offer.
for
Absolutely.
people who didn't see the presentation.
I would add to what Wanda was saying. As an educator, the AI is it's another tool, and obviously you have to have the buy-in from the families. But it is also a learning or teaching opportunity for teachers to teach students the proper way to use it. Again, you need parent buy-in with that. But I would say the younger generation, and I'm not even talking about students, I'm talking about when you have coworkers that are 20 plus years younger. Some of the stuff you mentioned, older people, maybe not talking about myself, I don't know. You don't know how to do it. It's just not there. And it's something that's already in the workplace. And it's like a daily use, a daily requirement. And if you can learn it young enough, there are plenty of people doing really great things with AI. Again, it's another tool that definitely has so many uses out there. So again, a good way to teach students how to use it and use it properly.
Yes, that's right.
This is just more for me, but when we're talking AI and technology, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, AI, and you're talking about Magic School, we're talking about platforms, we're talking about tools, we're talking about apps, correct? And then you've got like technology. Is that a good way to
Yes.
describe the AI?
Which will kind of segue.
You know what I'm saying?
Your part.
I'm trying to get it clear in my own brain. I'm old, okay? But is that a good way to?
Yes, it is the platform. Because within our policy, because the platform can change. Right. So that's kind of a great segue into Dr. Brown's part, because we want to make sure that when we're creating policy that we kind of create that open, that it reads that it's things that the district has endorsed. Not just necessarily saying magic student or
Right.
magic teacher, because
Right.
that could potentially change.
That's right. That's right.
And like you're
Yes.
saying with the change, that's a great time to come back for like, hey, this is not going, or it's not exactly what we thought, so we need to review this.
Right.
Maybe
Yes,
draw
sir.
back, or
Yes,
maybe
sir.
go a little further, who knows? So, yeah.
Or as we add additional, because I know we'll do more than Magic School. So as we add different programs with the AI platform, that I'm sure we will have to put that in the parent consent so that they know what programs, or make it available here at the district office, or whatever we decide we do within the policy or the rule to let people know.
Absolutely.
I think it's also very important that we let people know that there are the parameters in place for no student, and I think we do in our policy, but no student data is going to be shared, and that kind of information needs to be communicated as well. I'm sorry, but I think we're protected by the laws that we have to make sure that no student data is going to be shared or collected, and no biases for that kind of thing. But I think I don't want us to just look at AI like they're doing, or they're going to, they no longer have to write 2 + 2 to get 4. It is much broader than that. AI is going to touch every profession that is out there. It already is. The way the engineers look at and design things is going to be AI generated if it's not already. So we just need to make sure as a district that we're protecting our students, we're notifying our parents of the platforms and the tools that we're using, and that we're teaching them to use it properly, and that we communicate that with the community. And I think we've done a very good job of that based on everybody's input.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
I'm sorry.
go off of what Chairman McDowell said about the community. I've had a lot of people ask me about AI, and you talked about the school. You talked about the older people maybe not knowing so much. 15 years ago when the new math came out, you know, all of a sudden the parents couldn't help their child. And I know it's funny, but it's true. It's true. And when you talk AI and the technology they have, it puts the parent at a disadvantage. They can't help their child, which has a lot of different influences in the home. So I want to be able to explain it to the community when I'm asked. So I have to know something about it. And I had talked to Dr. Brown a couple of times about that to get some clarification that I could at least reassure the parents that, hey, this is not only the future, but that District 1 is going to have a control on it. So my question is, when we start this rollout, how are you going to present it to the parents? What's going to make them feel good about AI?
And that's a great point. And I did not include that on the timeline, but I'm making notes that we need to make sure that we have family engagement nights. Our AI leads could help create what that communication plan could look like so that it's consistently communicated the same way at every school. But that's an excellent point, Mr. Green.
Eric, there is, I've been following some of the bills that's passed, but I know back in February, they created that House Bill 5253, and it's going back to, they're already looking at, to making sure it's gonna prohibit schools from requiring or permitting the use of AI as part of instruction without receiving the consent from the parent. So that's gonna be the first thing. I mean, I don't know where it's at right now. I had asked Ms. Cleveland about it, but she said I'd need to talk to Debbie about where it stands, but, you know, so everybody's looking at all this stuff.
Barbara, that's a
my
great,
point.
that's a great point.
Everybody's looking at it, so we gotta make sure we're in that, whatever.
Spot on. And Wanda had actually mentioned that bill to me, so I did check to see where it is. It's still in committee, so I don't think it's going to make it out because they've only got like 2 weeks left of session, but it's coming. And better to be on the front end of it, and that's just the right thing to do anyway, to have parent consent, because we're not looking to hide anything. So I love that, and we will do parent consent for all of this.
And it just popped into my head, when you're talking about the family involvement nights, is there some type of video that would be stuck to the website if the parents can't make it?
That's a great idea. Absolutely.
I mean, even if we could do something really short, or if you record one and it's available so someone could watch it at a later date if they couldn't be there for that night.
Thank you for that.
That's excellent. I mean, I really love that.
I think we're gonna have a big head start on this because most parents are gonna have one of these, and they're gonna be immersed in AI as well. So if anything, we can help the children help the parents on how to protect themselves from it.
Yeah, because already in their email and already in their text, AI says it gives a summary before you
Yes.
even read the text, or a summary before you even read the email. So if you've got, an iPhone that, I guess a newer model, that is AI that gives you a summary of your text or a summary of your email. That is AI.
I think with Mark, that's a great point, and I'm in that generation where I'm in the in-between, because this technology, some comes easy to me, some doesn't. I still use a desk calendar. That is right. I do not put on my phone because I hate it. I like writing it down, and by gosh, I don't miss stuff as long as it's in my calendar. Gotta have it. So I'm not very handy. Some of y'all probably not. Go ahead and laugh, Trey. I'm not very handy. I know I'm a Smith from Pauline, but I struggle to hammer a nail. I've said it out loud. It's okay. Okay? But, so the last 2 Saturdays, I have wrestled my sprinkler system. It has been an all-out battle. But I used AI with taking pictures of the solenoid that I thought was damaged, but it wasn't really that. It was something else. But I used AI the whole way to guide me. Now, some of it was wrong, and I had to have the sense to know that. So here's what I like where we're going. We have to teach our kids what is in the world. They are taking part. Our high school kids or the college kids, they're doing this right now, just like my son in college is doing this right now. So we can't have our head in the sand, and I know none of us are saying that, but it is important to learn, but it's also important not to throw out the old school parts that help us all get to where we are, because that AI didn't help me with the grit I have to battle. I battled that thing for 5 hours on a Saturday. And it also didn't help me know when something was wrong of what it said, because just because AI says it doesn't make it true.
AI couldn't fix it.
AI couldn't fix it. So it is very important to go back how Erica started this with balance. And that is something I think the school board can help hold us accountable with this whole process is, are y'all being balanced? That is the best question I think you can ask us. But I thank you for all the input,
Great
because
discussion.
balance
Great
is going to
discussion.
help us best meet the needs of our children.
Thank you so much.
So much, Ms. Center. That was great. Love that video idea
I know,
for,
that's great.
and maybe incorporate just a little bit of how Magic School
Yes,
works would be
definitely.
great. So thank you so much for that timeline. Dr. Brown.
I worked with Miss Center for several years. I always will yield to her. She's the expert, 100%. So I'll gladly follow her. I'll try to, at least. So we've had a lot of course, discussion with Miss Center's timeline and how comprehensive it is, and just to give you the level of kind of reassurance moving forward as to what this will look like. I have been able to get a little bit of feedback from a few of you in regards to even some slight revisions, maybe just some additions, some omissions in regards to our specific AI policy and what it looks like. And I'm happy to kind of go over those, present those, because they are just some small things that we can discuss. But I also kind of want to, as we were talking out loud and y'all were bringing these points up, I've written a few things down, and I want to kind of just see where this would be, those things that you talked about and discussed with Ms. Center, how we could be valuable to make sure that we're inputting that within our policy and then our subsequent administrative rule of how this will kind of, from an operational standpoint, day to day, in the grind every single day in the classroom, what it will look like. So in your notebook, so with the help of Ms. Brooks, we've given you a notebook, and what we have is two portions. So I'll be giving you hard copies of these policies moving forward every single time that we speak and we discuss to add to your notebook. You have section G, but also you have section I on one of those tabs. Mm-hmm. So it'll correspond with our, current board policy manual. And section I is instruction, which is where acceptable use of technology and the acceptable use of artificial intelligence lies. And again, those were recommendations, specifically the AI policy. That was the recommended model policy that we got from the School Board Association and from Ms. Cleveland and her team. So, we didn't build this from scratch. We were able to get this from them, thankfully, so that we had something to kind of go off of, and again, create, modify, revise as deemed fit, as how it fits our district. I think the things off of what I've kind of been presented and talked about or up for discussion just from a revisional standpoint with IJNDR. If we can all get there, I just kind of want to present these first for discussion, and then I would kind of like to IJND-R.
Okay.
That's the acceptable use of artificial intelligence. That's the administrative rule.
There it is. It's toward the end.
Okay. And if we're just looking at line number 25, these lines have been greatly beneficial as we're looking at these. If we just look at line number 25, just have a revision of striking through for the use of. So starting on line 25, it says the district will maintain a list of approved AI tools. Striking through for the use of, and just replacing it with used. So it's pretty straightforward. There's not too much wording there. We want to be clear. We want to be clean, just like Ms. McDowell talked about earlier with these. So Go ahead, Ms.
district will
McDowell.
maintain a list of approved AI tools used by students. Is that what you're saying? Used
Yes.
by students, teachers, and staff.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. The next one is flipping over to the next page. It's line number 57. And it's in the teachers and staff portion right underneath that. So again, we're on line 57. So I'm going to read what it specifically says and then kind of just discuss, the recommended, revision to it. So again, reads a little bit clearer, and so there's a level of understanding. It currently reads, AI can support educators by assisting with lesson planning, creating supplemental instructional materials, personalizing learning. I'm sorry.
It's 2 pages from the end.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, sir. So again, it says AI can support educators by assisting with lesson planning, creating supplemental instructional materials, personalizing learning, streamlining administrative tasks, and providing professional development resources. So just striking through, AI can support educators by assisting with. Instead, replacing that first part of that sentence with teachers may use AI to assist only and not take the place of creating lesson plans. We can change that if we need to grammatically. Lesson plans, creating supplemental instructional materials, personalizing learning, streamlining administrative tasks, and providing professional development resources. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to repeat it. Yep.
Well, can I just ask, why would we put limitations on it?
I don't think it's. I don't think it'd be the limitation. I think it would be to ensure that the balance for the teachers to be able to use it as, again, a supplemental resource, a supplemental tool to assist them with those generations of lesson plans, and not necessarily taking the place of, because, one thing we really talked about is there is nothing more powerful than teacher judgment and people over the program aspect of things. As y'all were talking earlier, Ms. Center was discussing the power of our people and our teachers over any program that we use is the most powerful thing that we will be able to use. And that's why, again, as much as we talk about the use of technology, it will never supersede what our professionals in the classrooms are doing each and every single day. And that this is strictly being used as, again, a supplemental tool to enhance their already wonderful instruction that they're providing to our children every single day. So I think that's maybe just the kind of clarification on that and wanting.
Yeah, I think it's the assist with creating, because the way it reads is, it assists with the lesson plans, but I think we need to say assist and not take the place of. Yeah, so you shouldn't be able to use AI to completely do a lesson plan. So because we value what that teacher would create and kind of be a free thinker of themselves, and we want to make sure that they continue to do that because we value that, and that's why they're all with us.
So can you repeat that one more time, Mr. Dow? I want to just make sure I get that correctly. What you were kind of, is that terminology good? You're saying, in terms of what we have out there? I can say it one more time too.
Okay.
By assisting with, yes, ma'am. And then putting in there, teachers may use AI to assist only and not take the place of creating, is the way we would start that sentence. And again, I'm happy to repeat it. Yes, ma'am. Teachers may use AI to assist only and not take the place of creating.
I'm just gonna say this because it's bouncing in my head. Assisting, I'm thinking customizing, because they could use AI to customize, still not fully create, but help customize to their classroom
Yeah, but always.
student needs. Yeah, I'm just saying customizing. I think it would be really hard for AI to completely create a lesson plan that specifically fits a classroom down to a T. There's always going to be some, on the teacher's end, I guess is what I'm saying. On the teacher's end, there's going to be some customizing they have to do to their classroom. If they're teaching, have more than one prep, I mean, to create for different preps, you've got to do different things. So that's why in my head I'm thinking customizing.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's almost like the trust but verify, because what AI might create is good, but the teacher has the knowledge to say, yes, this is good, not just
Right.
straight from the proverbial printer to the classroom.
Agreed. So putting in there again, strike through creating and replace it with customizing. Okay, if you're ready, I'll move on to kind of the next one real quick. It's actually just on line 61, but the sentence to it starts on line 60, so it's just, again, just a few sentences down there. Line 60 starts off by saying, to maintain clarity and academic integrity, any assignment where AI use is permitted must clearly state that AI is allowed in the assignment details. So this kind of goes back to AI use by user group, which we have earlier on in this administrative rule, so that students have a clear line and a distinguished line that has been given by their teachers as to the leveled use of AI. Ms. Center talked about what that might look like when we get feedback from our AI leads. It might be no AI, might be some AI, might be a little bit more AI. It might be, red means no AI, yellow means a little bit, green means all. So instead of having in there on line 61, I'm going to jump to line 61 right there where it says that AI, adding in there, striking through that AI and putting in which AI use category is allowed in the assignment details.
Can you tell me where that's going again?
Yes, ma'am. That's in line 61.
Okay, acceptable use, okay.
And it says, the line starts off by saying, if I'm not mistaken, clearly state that AI is allowed in the assignment details. So strike through that AI and add in which AI use category.
Is that in line 60?
I'm sorry.
I think that's line 60. On 61, it
Okay.
just says acceptable use.
And it might have been too when I added this.
Okay.
It bumped my lines
Okay,
down.
that's probably what it
Okay.
did, yeah.
So I'll go back to the sentence where it starts. So it should read, if with the revision, if y'all are, okay, give it the clear and you're good with it. To maintain clarity and academic integrity, any assignment where AI use is permitted must clearly state which AI use category is allowed in the assignment details.
That's on line 59 of what we have, yeah.
Which AI category?
Okay. If we're good, I can kind of just interject in terms of our discussion with Ms. Center, specifically as it applies to the parent consent form. We know that's going to be critical. We know that's going to be very important, and we're even getting ahead of what potentially could be a code of law that's going to be coming down where we, of course, are going to have to do that. So adding language within this same policy, okay, or this administrative rule. So we're still in IJND-R. Flip over. So I know we were on page 2. Flip back over to where the administrative rule starts. My thought process, based on our discussion with Ms. Center, would be to insert that parental consent language, starting in that paragraph where it talks about approved AI use. And pardon if my line numbers are off. Mine's around line 23-ish, give or take. Including underneath that category, some discussion where we have to require the parent consent form in order for the student to be able to utilize the AI programs within the classroom. I feel like that might be the most appropriate place to put that within this administrative rule, just because, again, it talks about approved AI use in general. So we can have discussion on that. Again, I just kind of want to figure out what the wishes of the board were to where that might be best fitted. Yes, ma'am. That would be my thoughts. The next one, based on our conversations and our discussion tonight, Mr. Gramlin really talked about, those students that their parents might not opt them in, or they might opt them out, if you will, to not be using, AI in the classroom. The parallel assignments, if you will. I believe that probably some language that would best fit that in terms of how that looks in the classroom would probably be best suited in the next paragraph or in the next line where it talks about AI use by user groups. We can embed that language within there. And again, I think we're going to rely heavily on what our AI lead teachers in the classroom are telling us with that. That's going to be really important to distinguish what that can look like. But inevitably putting phrasing in there that discusses that a parallel assignment that is AI free and has the same or equals the same academic value that they're doing in the classroom, or whatever skill it is, whatever standard they're specifically instructing in there, that there is, again, a parallel assignment that is AI free that mirrors the same academic value that every other student is getting in the classroom. I think that goes back to your point, Mr. Johnson, the customization, because even within a lesson plan, again, Ms. Center, she taught me well. When you're in a workshop model in the classroom and you have, whole group instruction where you're teaching all of your students the same standard, but then you break off into differentiated groups, I'm being honest, you might have teachers that have put together 3 different types of lessons for those students in the classroom, and they're all going to get a customized lesson plan in that 30 minutes of instructional time. So I think that's where that would parallel pretty well. Mm-hmm.
I haven't written a research paper in a long time and don't plan on ever doing it again. With the plagiarism, do they if you use AI to help write a paper, do you have to use a footnote and you have to reference that, or is there something to where, again, it's just broad?
No, I think that anytime that, of course, when we were writing research papers back in the day, that we didn't take the knowledge of another person's book or article, whatever it is, we had to reference it and cite it. I think that's something that we probably would obviously have to put in, and maybe we add within this administrative guideline and this administrative rule the proper use of citations within a research paper to maintain the level of academic integrity, to prepare those students for college and career readiness. If they're going to college and there's AI detection software that professors use.
That's what I was going to say. At that level, Kaysen, my grandson, talked about that they had that AI software that knew, it picked up. Somehow it knows if it was plagiarized. I don't know how that works, but yeah.
And I think that would be a part of our level process as we begin to develop that. At what level would citation be required?
I know that there's a detection out there and they're catching college kids left and right. But there again, if our job is we're using this tool to educate our children to be able to use this tool once they leave District 1. They just need to know, we need to make sure our policies show that we may not have the software that detects it, but we're showing them how to properly do it.
Good point. Great point. And I think that, Mr. Gremlin, can really inevitably be its own category within this administrative rule and plan that we can develop.
I would add to that, it's pretty obvious if a student turns in an assignment and it is just so amazing. And you can pick out a paragraph out of it that they wrote, and it's like, yes. So I'm just, English teachers know, I'm not an English teacher, but you can tell. But yes, there's software and all that kind of stuff, but yeah.
Great point, Mr. Johnson, because I've had an example when I was principal, and it was evident though, because what the teacher did was she got writing samples at the very beginning of the year with the students and their own work. And she was able to, over the course of the 180 days, when the final exam came around, she knew exactly what that student's writing style was, what their wording was, everything. So a lot of professional judgment there.
I just want to say how excited I am to have a teacher on our board. That's really good information.
Happy to entertain any other questions too regarding any of these. And I know we also have too just the acceptable use of technology, which, yes, go ahead.
Anybody have any other questions for IJNDR? Or this is the R, meaning it's the administrative rule for our administration here. Okay. Thank you, Art. Dr. Brown?
So flipping, I think, a few page backwards just to the acceptable use of technology. And that is just IJNDB. So I'm going to kind of drift down to, I believe on that first page, again, forgive me with the line numbers, probably around line 46 where it starts off with district and school computer technicians. So we can kind of just start there, and I'm going to kind of read what that specifically says right now and just kind of discuss, again, just a phrasing of clarity, if you will, to make sure that we everybody kind of understands, people that read this for the first time understand exactly what it says. But it currently reads, district and school computer technicians who are working with a computer or other technology devices and come across sexually explicit images of children must report this to local law enforcement. And then it goes on to say, it might be on the next page for you, the report must include the name and address of the owner or person in possession of the computer. Okay. Instead of that first sentence where it specifically talks with the technicians, striking through that whole first sentence and letting it read this way. And again, I'm happy to repeat this just for clarity. District and school computer technicians who encounter sexually explicit images of children while servicing computers or other technology devices are required to report this to local law enforcement.
So is there I'm just asking, is there a chain of command? Do they pick up the phone? Do they call the SRO? Do they call 911? Do they tell their supervisor? Do they tell, who I mean, you say, go to law enforcement, but is there a process set in place that this is what you do if you find this?
Well, it might even be advisable too, where if we wanted to add in there, they report to their direct supervisor. So if that is, and it specifically talks about school and district computer technicians who encounter this.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, teachers are mandatory reporters.
Correct.
So
Absolutely. And
they go to their supervisor.
Correct. They report directly to their principal. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, sir.
So I guess that's what I'm just wondering.
Sure. the chain of command as a reporting aspect. Yes, sir.
It should definitely go through the chain of command.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Where can we verify that?
Well, I guess
Well,
the chain of command, it would be, they would go to their supervisor. Supervisor, I'm going to assume, would probably be coming to you.
Actually, it would be Casey Atkins.
Oh, okay, so.
Yeah.
Casey would be
Well, the technician will report it to Casey, and then Casey would then make me aware of it.
Right, okay.
Okay. So do we need, I know, that's what I was getting ready to ask.
So it was really just changing, if you will. There wasn't much correction, and I guess I could have said it a little bit better. Instead of doing after the word technicians, Mr. Rollins, it says who are working with a computer or other technology devices. We kind of just said district and school computer technicians who encounter sexually explicit images of children while servicing computers or other technology devices are required to report this to local law enforcement. Because we just want to be clear that they don't, if even though they're not specifically working with it, if they encounter it in any way, shape, or form, that they're going through and making sure they're reporting this.
Can you read that one more time? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. District and school computer technicians who encounter sexually explicit images of children while servicing computers or other technology devices are required to report this to local law enforcement.
Should we talk about the chain of command in this paragraph? Just a question. So,
Would that,
Should that be
it
in the
looks like
R?
it's telling them to go straight to the police,
but,
so I'm just asking.
but wouldn't that still follow that like as a mandatory reporter? Kind of the training that
Sure,
district members go
absolutely.
through to your.
Absolutely.
Kind of falls under that to where you go to your supervisor when you see this kind of stuff. I'm just saying it didn't, I don't know that it necessarily needs to be in the policy because there's already that in place with being a mandatory reporter.
Absolutely. Happy to entertain any other discussion as it applies to IJNDB, which is the acceptable use of technology. That's the only ones I had noted for discussion for revisions.
Any other questions? All right. Are we good?
I'm good. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Thank you. So is there any revisions to IJNDBR? We're good, we're good with that? We're okay with that? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
No questions regarding that one? Okay. All right. Okay. All right, so I wanted to, I think, Dr. Brown is gonna remain up there because we're at the discussion of policy G and timeline and policy process. So, but just to back up, we will have the second reading for the IJ, the technology, the ones that were pulled out, the four that were pulled out of I that will be, up for second reading at our May board meeting. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
just FYI, just to clarify for everyone. Which leads us to our discussion of policy G, which we had our first reading on at our last board meeting, of a timeline and a policy process. And so before we do the timeline, I would like for, think Dr. Brown, Dr. Smith, myself, put our heads together. I can only take just that much credit for it. Just for a process that we all could feel comfortable with, and that everyone, that we would make sure that we are putting a lot of our focus on the first reading, because when we put a lot of our focus on the first reading by sending those questions to Dr. Brown and your suggested additions and deletions, then it makes reading the second reading really easy, because we can hash it out at that first reading, whether it's a work session or whether it's a board meeting for that. So I will encourage everyone, and including myself, for that first let's really press on that first reading to get as much input as we can for everyone. So the second reading, and then we can post that, and then the second reading will hopefully be able to flow smoothly. But we want to make sure that we answer everyone's questions and everyone has an understanding of the process of how we're going to come about that. Ms. Hopper.
Yes, ma'am. I want to make sure that I'm understanding. This is just for me. So the first reading, we're still going to communicate with Dr. Brown on anything, any of our concerns, or if it's a word change or whatever. And so I know we can call you at any time, and so we would just email you or whatever.
So,
all right, that's all I need to know. I just
so-
want to make sure I'm.
Yes, ma'am. I don't mean to interrupt. I don't
No,
mean to
you're
interrupt
fine.
you, Ms. Hopper. But so I think that if there's a policy making flow chart that Dr. Brown has prepared for us, and so I think if we, Dr. Smith, unless you have something that you wanted to say at this time, that we allow you to present that to us,
Oh,
and
okay.
that'll kind of give you
Okay.
the idea of the flow for that, and then we will discuss the policy G timeline. Policy G is so huge. Y'all heard Ms. Cleveland talk about policy G. So we'll talk about policy G and how we want to really approach that. But Dr. Brown, will you take us through kind of what we talked about and what we came up with, the policy process? And
Sure.
it was good to hear Ms. Cleveland say that you can have a PDF where everything that Dr. Brown said tonight with strike throughs, or what he had to present, could already be in the document. It could already be in the document in PDF, where we would still have to call. So I'll let you explain.
Sure, absolutely. Again, you told us to change the light bulbs. I like that, Mr. Down. We just come up with how it works. Okay, and this was a team effort in making sure that we were addressing this to, again, help support the board in their decision making with policy. So kind of just start on the upper left hand corner there, as with this policy making flow chart. You know, any policy that's going to be up for discussion and or review, because of course we're going to be reviewing things. Quite a big deal here moving forward. I will be sending those out, as I usually have been, 2 weeks prior to the next regularly scheduled board meeting is what I will do. So that's any policy that is going to be up for discussion, and that's going to be posted on the board agenda that's created by Ms. Brooks and posted to the public. So I will send those out 2 weeks prior. And I think one other thing that I noted from our last discussion too was just the correlations as the maybe new coding, because again, as you know, we are getting all of these new codes that align with the South Carolina School Board Association's manual, which is going to make it a whole lot easier for us when we get those legislative manuals in the fall after the school law conference, to be able to, again, quickly just go back and revise and modify the policies that we need to. It's going to make it a whole lot easier once the coding is up to date. Again, we're in G still, and we still have a pretty large amount of coding we have to update. But what I've also done too, I've already started, and I believe I already finished it, is on the school board policy landing page that you have. I have correlated the new codes that are being presented with the old codes in the manual. So all you have to do, if you want to, you can just kind of flip back and forth and see which portions of the new policy that are being proposed, which ones go back to the current policies, because again, it's a coding thing and we're trying to get that aligned, if that makes sense. So I've also kind of already started that process for you as well. In terms of deadlines for any recommendations for revisions, and those include like strike-throughs, omissions, or additions, if you would, again, like you have already been doing, just send those directly to me. And if you wouldn't mind, just the deadline for that to be by the end of the business day on Wednesday. Again, you can send them really as Mr. Johnson as late as you want to, because I'm sometimes up and I'll be getting things together. But if you could, by the end of the business day on Wednesday, give me all of your revisions or recommendations for those policies prior to the next regularly scheduled board meeting, that'll kind of be the cutoff time for me to get those and process them. Because if you go down to the next bubble there, all those recommended revisions will be included in the board packet for review on Thursday. So all of those revisions that you've sent me, I will have those color-coded, outlined there to the right. So the next little bubbles there are red and yellow. I'll have, again, those recommended omissions that you're giving me. I will have those struck through, and I'll have those highlighted in red. And then the recommended additions will, be in, I'll put them in brackets or parentheses, and I'll have those in yellow just so we can have again, static document that you can review that's in a board packet for your review prior to the next regularly scheduled board meeting. And then, of course, the day of the board meeting, too, I'll provide you these hard copies of the policies that are up for discussion. They'll be provided to you, and we'll kind of just ask that you kind of add them to your current manual that you have, and we'll just keep updating that. And again, these hard copies that I'm going to give you are not different than what's inside the board packet. It's going to be what's inside the board packet. It's just going to be a hard copy version of it in case you just need a hard copy and you write on things and like to annotate that way. And those will include all the revisions up for recommendation that have been made by you. But any additional recommendations for revisions after that Wednesday deadline, we'll just have to have those up for discussion at our regular scheduled board meeting so we can have those in an open setting.
So, right, and we would ask that you get your suggestions, your additions, your deletions, just your input in but if you have input at the board meeting or at the work session, that will also be discussed that's where we will discuss everything.
Correct. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
But we should put forth every effort to try to get that information to make it more.
So that Dr. Brown should make them.
Yes, ma'am.
Get it to you, the better it is.
Absolutely. Yes.
It will definitely expedite the process if y'all give Dr. Brown the feedback by Wednesday. Of course, any board member has the right when it's in open discussion, but it's just with all the policies we have to get through, we're looking at being most wise with our time. So it would just expedite it. That's exactly right, Barbara. The one point I would like to make is what Wanda started with. The pivot we're having here is, and that's just a pivot, is really hitting that first read hard. I did some research of what other boards are doing, and I was told that they really hit it hard on the first one. And the second one, it's not that you can't make changes, of course you can, but those typically are more grammatical and just semantics, not content. So I think it would also help us be more organized and expedite the process hitting it on the first read. So I just want to reiterate what Wanda said, because that is a pivot of what we've been doing, and we're learning too. That's not y'all's fault. That's what we've been doing. That's not the board's fault. But I think as we've looked at how, as Wanda challenged us to develop a process, just made us think and ask some questions like, okay, and that makes more sense that way. So I do think that would help us if the board's okay with doing it that way.
We will have all discussion points at the first reading if we're able to accomplish that. Not saying that they can't be in the second. You're right. That's not what we're saying. Or even the day of, because everything will be deliberated openly. Okay.
So that's the flow chart. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So that's the flow chart. So just to clarify again, for our second reading at our May board meeting, we will have the 4I policies. And if you'll all turn over to G section right now, for our G timeline. For our second reading for G, at our May board meeting, we would like to have the 5 or 6 educator assistant acts policies that are required first, that we need to have this in place for the administration. So we would like to have the second reading of GBC, excuse me, let me put my glasses on. GBC, GCB, GCK, GCOC, GCOD, and GCOF with GC, is that an O or a Q?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, it's Q. I'm sorry, Ms. McDowell.
GCQ.
GCQC.
GCQF. I feel like I'm up with the highway department.
You passed.
GCQF and GCQFR.
Yeah,
I know.
I know.
R for that. So out of the G that we had for the first reading, we would like to have these, I think there's 6 of them. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
With the R. 6 for a second reading so we can make sure that we have this in place, because this is all required for us through the Educator Assistance Act. Those policies need to be updated. And then we will have the remainder half of G that we pulled out this G. We pulled out these 6. And the remainder, we will have the second reading at our June board meeting. It's a lot. G is a lot. G is a lot. So we from the first reading of G, we're pulling out the Educator Assistance Act associated policies. And we want to have our second reading, because these were in the first. We want to have our second reading on these for our May meeting. And then because there's so in in G, we thought we needed more time, or we wanted to allow more time to go over the remainder of the G. So have the second reading of the remainder of the G in June. In June. We check the policies, and we're not, nothing's dormant. We're still reviewing these, so nothing is dormant, because I think in one of our policies that's an administrative, it's just more of a review policy. We advise the administration not to let any policy lie dormant for 60 days. So as long, we are still actively communicating with Dr. Brown and with any of our suggestions, our changes, deletions, inputs. So it is not dormant. So we are still within our policy rights to be able to extend the second reading for the remainder of G into our June meeting.
And then to include within,
Yes.
you go ahead, Ms.
No,
McDowell.
you go ahead. You're right. You're
Okay.
right.
And we do have, I think it would be 2 more Educator Assistance Acts policies that we would need to update. So advisable that we include those for first reading at our May board meeting, and then a potential adoption for in June, just so we can, again, completely close out the Educator Assistance Acts one to make sure that we're compliant with state law with that moving forward. So we'll be able to kind of put a bow on those.
Yes, so we will have the first reading.
Yes,
of those
ma'am.
two as well in May. So we can have the second reading in June, and they'll have everything they need to satisfy educators.
We just got to add 2 more.
Yes, ma'am. There's 2 more, Ms. Hopper. Yes, and I will share those with you
Right.
as well.
Right, so we have already, Dr. Brown has already pulled out in our notebook, the Educator Assistance Act, the 6 that we want to have a second reading on. They're already in here, and I think the two that we also need to have, in addition to the remainder of G, that we will have a second reading on in June.
That's
And
the
that's
first
still the
half.
first half of
G.
G, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Come back
that
later,
is,
later.
yes.
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 School year, we can tackle the second half.
Right, and we will have a timeline for the remainder of G. So we will, Dr. Brown, Dr. Smith and I will see the best way to break that out, where it's a lot. So we want to make sure that we don't put too much on everybody at one time, that we're able to give each of our policies the attention that they need. Okay?
Okay.
Clear as mud for that? Dr. Brown, will you just briefly just walk us through like the first 5 of G, and then I will just encourage everybody to start tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am. And again, I can cite these or Miss Dr. Beeson too, if she wants to discuss these.
Just a quick overview of what we're looking at for each one.
I can yield to you, Dr. Beeson, if you want to, because again, I will say this: I couldn't have done G without Dr. Beeson and Jada being a part of that as well. There's a lot of our working hours trying to go through these and make sure that we're drafting these up for you appropriately for your review.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Dr. Brown and Madam Chair. I'll just summarize them because I just know them.
Okay.
So if that works for y'all, okay, I'll just summarize them. Because what I've done is I've already put processes in place to make sure that we're already in compliance. And so we really just need the board policy to line up with it, okay? So when it talks about staff compensation, what they're requiring of us is basically to go ahead and let staff know what their compensation is going to be for the coming school year when their contracts and letters of agreement are issued. Well, as you know, we don't have a approved budget for the next school year by the time we have to create those. So what we've done in lieu of that, in lieu of being able to put that exact amount in everybody's contract and letter of agreement, is a statement that says you will not make less than your current salary for the current school year, for the next school year. And so that lets them know, I'm not gonna make less, I'm probably gonna make more, but I don't know exactly what that's gonna be yet because the budget hadn't been approved, okay? So that takes care of the staff compensation, as well as where it talks about the professional staff contract and compensation. So having that language in there. For professional staff assignments and transfers, the requirement is 14 days before students return. Faculty should be confirmed for their place where will be their main location for the following school year. And so what we've done to accommodate that is all of our principals send out a email blast to everybody that's in their distribution list on July 1, confirming that they are their main location for the coming school year. And so that takes care of that requirement. Resignations of professional staff, discipline, suspensions, and dismissal. This gets a little more detailed because the intent here was to cut back on some of the penalty for breach of contract, is where this is coming in. Because we have all those times when folk decide that they want to leave and go somewhere else after they've signed a contract with a school district. And so consequently, districts were allowed to basically sue them for breach of contract, and their license could be suspended. What the Educator Assistance Act did was limit the amount of time that could happen. And it also has given to the board a level of authority in regards to having their own hearings, local hearings, and making a determination as to whether or not you actually want to move forward with a breach. It also puts some language in there in regards to, if they're moving, where they're moving to. So are they moving to a district that's connected to the district that they're leaving? If so, then there's a different level of penalty for that versus if they're moving to, let's say they're moving from us to Richland 1, there would be a difference in how that would look. And so basically, with it being a 60-day window from the time of the breach to the time that they could get to the State Department, it ends up really not being a penalty at the end of the day. But again, the local board does have the authority, if they choose, to have a hearing to discuss whether or not they even want to file breach of contract under those circumstances. And that's basically what those sections involve. Okay? All right.
We've got the page numbers associated with these, the six that we'll have, or? We have the page numbers associated with the 6 that we will have the second reading on at our next board meeting. Well, any other questions? Anybody have any other questions? About anything, any of our policies? Any discussion on G tonight? All right. Don't have anything else. I say we call it a night. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming.